Report date Earth Standard Time, summer 2157. Cultural Research Mission Observation Log 2157238. Lead Researcher Ambassador Xylof Bright Scale. Location Metropolitan Area, North American Continent. By the Sacred Rings of Centauri. What in the name of all 7 moons is that I nearly dropped my holo recorder as I stared through our cloaked observation pod's view screen. My research assistant, Stargazer Bell, rushed to my side, her bioluminescent spots flickering with concern. Ambassador Brightscale, what's wrong? Have the humans developed new weaponry? I couldn't even speak. I just pointed at the human male walking down the street below us. The subject's arms were completely covered in. Well, I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. Intricate patterns of color swirled across his skin, depicting fierce creatures, abstract designs, and text in various human languages. Quantum. Get over here immediately, I called to our team's medical expert, Quantum Parker, who had been cataloging human dietary habits in the adjacent chamber. I think we're witnessing some form of epidemic. The human skin appears to be mutating. Quantum adjusted his sensory appendages and peered at the display. Fascinating and disturbing. The pigmentation appears permanent, yet the human shows no signs of distress. Wait, there's another one. Sure enough, a human female had just emerged from a nearby building, her visible skin decorated with vibrant flowers that appeared to bloom right out of her epidermis. She smiled, laughed, and engaged in casual conversation with the first subject as if nothing was wrong. Quick, scan for biological contamination, I ordered, my professional calm starting to crack. We'd been studying humans for 3 Earth months now, but nothing in our briefings had prepared us for this. Stargazer Bell's tentacles flew across the sensor panel. No signs of pathogenic agents, Ambassador. Whatever this is, it's not contagious. At least not in any way our instruments can detect. I forced myself to take a deep breath, my respiratory membranes fluttering. All right, let's approach this scientifically. Quantum, what's your medical assessment? Quantum's eyes spun in their sockets as he conducted deeper scans. The markings appear to be subdermal, artificially introduced pigments. They're permanent modifications to the skin, and based on my preliminary data, these humans are deliberately doing this to themselves. Impossible, I exclaimed, my professional demeanor completely forgotten. No sentient species would voluntarily alter their body's natural camouflage patterns. It goes against every principle of evolutionary survival. Just then, our sensors detected more humans with similar modifications walking past our observation point. Some had small, discrete markings, while others were covered from neck to ankles in elaborate scenes that would put our planet's most talented artists to shame. Ambassador Stargazer Bell whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of horror and fascination. I think we need to contact High Command immediately. This could change everything we thought we knew about human culture. I nodded, still staring at the parade of walking artworks below us. Agreed. But how do we even begin to explain this? High Commander Aurora Nebula will think we've all gone mad. Quantum Parker was already preparing the emergency transmission. Perhaps we should lead with humans have developed the ability to permanently alter their biological appearance at will and work our way up from there. I groaned, knowing how that would sound to our superiors. No, that would cause a planet-wide panic. We need to understand this phenomenon better before we report back. Start continuous monitoring of all humans with these, what should we even call them? Body illustrations, suggested Stargazer Bell. Skin stories, offered Quantum. I shook my head, making a mental note to review any human terminology we could find about this practice. One thing was certain, our mission had just become far more complicated than a routine cultural observation. As I watched another decorated human walk by, I couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these fascinating and terrifying creatures had in store for us. Report date Earth Standard Time, summer 2157. Cultural Research Mission Observation Log 2157239. Lead Researcher Ambassador Xylof Bright Scale. Location Metropolitan Area, North American Continent. Look at this one, Stargazer Bell projected a holographic image in the center of our research pod. The human has what appears to be an entire aquatic ecosystem permanently embedded in their skin. Are they trying to become amphibious? I rubbed my temples, reviewing the last 48 hours of surveillance data. We had documented over 300 humans with these mysterious markings, and each new discovery left us with more questions than answers. That's nothing, Quantum Parker chimed in, his excitement barely contained. I found one with writing across their shoulders. It says no regerts. I believe it's some form of ancient warrior code, though our language database shows a spelling discrepancy. Focus, team, I said, trying to maintain some semblance of order. We need concrete theories before our next report to High Command. Bell, what have you learned about the social significance? Stargazer Bell's bioluminescent spots pulsed with academic enthusiasm. It's absolutely fascinating, Ambassador. These markings appear to serve multiple functions in human society. Some are clearly tribal identifiers, like the group of humans we observed with matching symbolic patterns they call infinity signs and butterflies. Are those their warrior clans? I asked, making notes in my personal log. Not exactly, Bell continued. They were consuming large quantities of fermented beverages and engaging in high-pitched vocalizations they called wooing. I believe it was some form of communal bonding ritual. Quantum Parker interrupted, his medical sensors whirring. Ambassador, you need to see this footage from their information network. Humans have entire establishments dedicated to this practice. The holographic display shifted to show various images of these tattoo parlors, as humans called them. I watched in horrified fascination as humans voluntarily entered these establishments with pristine skin and emerged hours later with permanent alterations. Their pain tolerance is remarkable, Quantum noted, reviewing his physiological data. They endure hours of mechanical needles injecting pigments into their dermis. And here's the most shocking part: they pay for this experience. Perhaps it's a form of endurance testing, I suggested, still struggling to comprehend. A way to prove their worth to potential mates. Bell's tentacles waved dismissively. That's what I thought at first. But look at this. She pulled up an image of an elderly human female, her skin adorned with images of small furry creatures called cats. A warrior decorated with her vanquished prey, I ventured. No, Ambassador, Bell said, barely containing her amusement. According to her social media profile, she's a retired librarian who really loves her pets. I slumped in my hover chair. None of this makes sense. How can a species simultaneously have advanced technology and voluntarily mark themselves with permanent images of cartoon characters? Oh, speaking of cartoon characters, Quantum exclaimed, pulling up another file. You won't believe what some humans put on there. Lower anatomical regions. That's quite enough research for now, Quantum, I said hastily. Just then, our long-range sensors detected something unusual. A group of humans was gathering at a local cultural center, something called a tattoo convention. The energy readings were off the charts. This is our chance, I declared. We'll send in our humanoid observation drones to gather close-range data. Maybe seeing these proceedings up close will help us make sense of this phenomenon. Should we inform High Commander Aurora Nebula about our findings so far? Bell asked. I imagined trying to explain to our superior that humans willingly paid to have their skin permanently altered with images ranging from profound spiritual symbols to something called SpongeBob. The mere thought gave me a headache. Not yet, I decided. We need more data. Besides, Cultural Minister Dawn Song is still recovering from our report about human piercings. Let's not send them into another panic just yet. Speaking of panic, Quantum interjected, I've been analyzing the symbolic meaning of these markings. You see this common design? Humans call it tribal, except it doesn't correspond to any actual human tribe we've documented. They just think it looks. Cool, I repeated, consulting our linguistic database. As in temperature. Apparently it's a colloquialism meaning appealing or impressive, Bell explained. Though why geometric patterns reminiscent of ancient warrior markings would be considered fashionable in a post-industrial society remains unclear. Our research pod's alert system suddenly flashed. Another human had entered our observation zone, this one's entire back covered in what appeared to be a giant mythological creature breathing fire. Note this in the cultural significance log, I ordered. Humans appear to value permanent representations of creatures that don't even exist. What's next? Will we find one with mathematical equations? Actually, Ambassador Quantum began, pulling up yet another image. Never mind. Don't tell me I waved my appendages in surrender. Just keep observing. There has to be a logical explanation for all of this. As we continued our surveillance, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something obvious. These humans, these walking art galleries, seemed so proud of their markings. They shared images on their digital networks, spent hours discussing designs, and treated their decorated skin like precious artifacts. Belle, I said thoughtfully, pull up the historical records. When did humans start this practice? The data streamed across our screens, showing evidence of skin modification dating back thousands of years across multiple continents. By the sacred rings, I whispered. This isn't some new phenomenon. It's been part of their culture since before they developed written language. These aren't just decorations. They're telling stories. Stories, Quantum and Belle asked simultaneously. Yes, stories. Think about it, every marking we've documented, from the simplest symbol to the most elaborate scene, means something to its bearer. We're not just observing a bizarre cultural practice. We're witnessing the longest-running art exhibition in human history, Belle finished, her spots glowing with understanding. I nodded, feeling both excited and overwhelmed by this revelation. Schedule an emergency meeting. We need to completely revise our approach to studying these markings. And someone please figure out how to explain this to high command without causing an interstellar incident. As my team rushed to reorganize our research priorities, I stared at the images covering our display screens. Humans truly were full of surprises. Just when we thought we had them figured out, they showed us another layer of complexity that defied our understanding. And Quantum, I added as an afterthought, delete those lower anatomical region files from the database. Some things are better left unexplained in our official reports. Report date Earth Standard Time, Summer 2157. Cultural Research Mission Observation Log 2157240. Lead Researcher Ambassador Xylof Bright Scale. Location Electric Dreams Tattoo Studio, Metropolitan Area. Ambassador, I must protest. This violation of safety protocols is completely unprecedented. Quantum Parker's voice crackled through my neural communicator as I adjusted my human holographic disguise. Noted, Quantum. But after 3 days of external observation, we need closer contact. The tattoo convention is tomorrow, and we still don't understand their modification processes, I replied, checking my reflection. The hologram showed a perfectly average human male with pristine, unmarked skin. Perfect. At least let me accompany you, Stargazer, Belle pleaded from our observation pod. Your disguise matrix could malfunction. Too risky. Multiple holographic signatures might trigger their security systems. Besides, someone needs to monitor from outside, and I paused, watching a human exit the tattoo parlor. By the 7 moons, their entire face is covered in something called sacred geometry. Taking a deep breath, I activated my human movement protocols and walked through the door of Electric Dreams Tattoo Studio. A small chiming sound announced my entrance, and a human female looked up from her workstation. According to her name tag, this was Maya Winters, the shop's lead artist. Welcome to Electric Dreams. First time getting ink, Maya asked, smiling warmly. I consulted my prepared response sheet. Yes, I am completely normal human wanting totally average tattoo like other humans frequently acquire. Ambassador, you're shouting, Belle whispered through the communicator. Maya raised an eyebrow but maintained her smile. No need to be nervous. Everyone's a little anxious their first time. Did you have a design in mind? I pulled out the reference image we'd selected after hours of research. I wished to acquire this symbol of human strength and wisdom. Maya studied the image. A butterfly tramp stamp. Are you sure that's what you want? Our research indicates this is a very popular choice, I protested, perhaps too forcefully. Ambassador, I'm detecting elevated stress patterns in your voice modulation, Quantum warned. Maya set down the image. Look, how about we start with something smaller? I have an opening right now if you'd like to talk designs. Before I could respond, another customer emerged from the back room, his arm wrapped in a clear protective covering. Through it, I could see fresh markings, the skin raised and reddened. The human appears to be in the middle of molecular reconstruction, I gasped, forgetting to maintain my cover voice. What was that? Maya asked. I said, how wonderful. The molecular. The artistic reconstruction appears. Just then, the mechanical humming of a tattoo machine started up from another room. My sensor arrays went wild trying to analyze the sound. Would you like to see how it works? Maya offered, gesturing toward the sound. My colleague is just starting a piece. Sometimes watching helps calm the nerves. Abort mission, Quantum shrieked in my ear. Our data suggests that device operates at frequencies that could disrupt your holographic field. But scientific curiosity overcame caution. I followed Maya to the doorway, where another artist was leaning over a human's arm, the tattoo machine buzzing steadily. As you can see, we use sterile needles to Maya began. The artist lifted the machine, and I saw the needles. Dozens of tiny needles, moving at high speed, repeatedly puncturing human flesh while depositing pigments beneath the skin. Needles, I screamed, my holographic disguise flickering momentarily. You willingly allow needles to repeatedly pierce your flesh. Everyone in the shop turned to stare at me. Ambassador, your hologram, Bell warned desperately. I tried to recover. How fascinating this completely normal and not at all terrifying process is. Please continue stabbing this human repeatedly for art. I am not at all disturbed by this display. Maya took a step back. Sir, are you feeling okay? You're looking a bit transparent. To my horror, I realized my emotional distress was causing my holographic field to malfunction. The edges of my true form were becoming visible. I am perfectly fine. Completely normal human biological response to watching other humans endure voluntary pain rituals. Nothing unusual occurring. The tattoo machine stopped. The artist and their client were now staring openly at my increasingly unstable disguise. Dude, are you glowing? The client asked. Emergency extraction required, I yelped into my communicator. Beam me up. I must go. Attend to normal human activities. Elsewhere. I turned to flee, but my destabilizing hologram caused me to misjudge the doorway. I crashed into the wall, leaving a slight scorch mark from my bioluminescent panic response. Sorry for disruption of business operations. Please accept my apologies and forget everything you witnessed. Especially the glowing. There was no glowing. I bolted through the correct doorway this time, sprinting down the street as my hologram continued to flicker. Bell. Emergency cloaking field. Now. A shimmer in the air beside me indicated the arrival of our cloaked transport pod. I dove through the molecular barrier just as my hologram completely failed. That was, I gasped, my spots flashing in distress patterns. A complete violation of protocol, Quantum suggested. A disaster, Bell added. They use needles, I shouted. Multiple needles, repeatedly, for hours. And they pay for this. They schedule appointments for this. They bring friends to watch this. At least you got some close-up observations, Bell offered helpfully. I slumped in my hover chair, my color slowly returning to normal. Send a message to High Command. Subject: urgent update on human pain tolerance and aesthetic preferences. Body of message: humans are even more terrifying than previously documented. Should I include the part where you screamed about needles? Quantum asked, already typing. No. That part is classified. In fact, this entire incident is classified. We were never here. What about the scorch mark you left on their wall? Bell inquired. Quantum, add a credit transfer to their account. Anonymous donation for renovation purposes. As we flew back to our main observation post, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd witnessed. Just when I thought humans couldn't surprise me anymore, they revealed new layers of fascinating and horrifying behavior. You know what the strangest part is, I mused, reviewing the sensor data we'd managed to collect. The human getting tattooed. They were smiling, talking casually about their plans for the weekend while being repeatedly stabbed with pigment-delivering needles. Maybe pain doesn't register the same way in their nervous system, Quantum theorized. Or maybe Bell suggested the art really means that much to them. I shuddered, remembering the sound of the tattoo machine. Update the mission parameters. All future close-range observations will be conducted via remote drone only. And someone please fetch me a nerve-calming solution. I need to stabilize before we attend tomorrow's convention. About that, Quantum said hesitantly. Given today's events, are you sure attending the convention is wise? I thought about the hundreds of humans gathered in one place, dozens of tattoo machines running simultaneously, the endless display of decorated skin and voluntary pain endurance. No, it's not wise at all. But we need to understand. Send in the drones maximum cloaking. And Quantum, update my personal log. Note that humans are either the bravest or most insane species we've ever encountered. Possibly both. And the scorch mark Bell pressed. Never happened, I insisted. Now, let's prepare for tomorrow. And someone please explain to me why humans would want something called a sleeve that isn't actually a piece of clothing. As my team busied themselves with preparation, I caught my reflection in the pod's window. For a brief moment I wondered what I would look like with some decorative markings of my own. Then I remembered the needles and quickly dismissed the thought. Some aspects of human culture, I decided, were better appreciated from a very, very safe distance. Report date Earth Standard Time, Summer 2157. Cultural Research Mission Emergency Transmission Log. Lead Researcher Ambassador Xylof Bright Scale. A Location Orbital Observation Station. Ambassador Bright Scale, please repeat that last statement. High Commander Aurora Nebula's holographic form flickered with barely contained alarm. Did you say humans can permanently alter their biological appearance at will? I glanced nervously at Stargazer Bell and Quantum Parker before responding. Well, not exactly at will, High Commander. They require specialized tools and trained professionals too. Trained professionals, Cultural Minister Dawn Song burst into view, shoving aside Aurora's hologram. You mean they have an entire specialized class of mutation engineers? They prefer the term artists, I corrected weakly. And if you'd just let me explain about the pigments and needles. Needles, the entire Galactic Council erupted in unanimous horror. 17 different species representatives started talking at once, their overlapping holograms creating a strobing effect in our communication chamber. Please, everyone, I tried again. If you'd just look at our research data. Ambassador Aurora cut in, her crystalline features sharp with concern. Are you suggesting these humans willingly submit themselves to repeated puncture wounds for aesthetic purposes? Well, when you put it that way. And they can create any design they desire. Permanently, asked First Minister Spiral Wind, their tentacles curling in agitation. Within reason, yes, but... Within reason, Dawn Song's hologram started pacing. What possible reason could there be for encoding living tissue with decorative imagery? I pulled up our research files. Actually, it's quite fascinating from a cultural perspective. They use these markings to commemorate significant life events, express artistic creativity, honor loved ones. Honor loved ones by permanently scarring themselves, Aurora interrupted. Ambassador, are you quite sure your translation matrix wasn't malfunctioning during your observations? Quantum Parker stepped forward. If I may, High Commander, our data is quite thorough. We have documented over 3,000 individual cases of these modifications, ranging from small symbolic designs to complete body coverage. The council chamber erupted again. I caught fragments of conversations. Complete body coverage. They can modify their entire external appearance. What's stopping them from perfectly mimicking other species? Are we sure they're not shapeshifters? Silence. Aurora's voice cut through the chaos. Ambassador Brightscale, your team's reports indicate you witnessed this process firsthand. I felt my spots flush with embarrassment. There was a minor incident during our close observation attempts. Minor, Bell muttered behind me. You nearly exposed our existence because of a butterfly tattoo. Not helping, Bell, I hissed, before addressing the council again. Yes, we observed the procedure. The humans have developed a remarkably precise method of pigment insertion using oscillating needle arrays. Enough Dawn Song raised all four hands in protest. I've heard enough about needles. The real question is, what are the security implications? First Minister Spiral Wind's hologram expanded. Think about it. If humans can modify their appearance at will, how can we trust any identification protocols? What's stopping them from infiltrating our societies? They're not actually changing their genetic structure, Quantum tried to explain. It's simply a form of artistic expression using subdermal pigmentation. Artistic expression, Dawn Song looked ready to faint. You mean they're doing this for fun? Minister Song, please remain calm, Aurora advised, though her own hologram was flickering with stress patterns. Ambassador Brightscale, what do your psychological assessments indicate about this behavior? I consulted my notes. Well, humans appear to take great pride in their modifications. They gather in large numbers to display and compare their markings, often planning future alterations years in advance. They even have annual celebrations called conventions where they gather to compare mutations. Spiral Wind's tentacles were now tied in actual knots. This is worse than we thought. They're organizing. No, you're misunderstanding, I pleaded. These are peaceful gatherings. More like art exhibitions, really. Art exhibitions where they actively modify more humans, Dawn Song demanded. Well, yes, technically, but enough. Aurora's hologram expanded to fill the chamber. This situation clearly requires immediate action. Ambassador Brightscale, your team is to cease all close contact with human subjects immediately. We're implementing Procedure 47B. Procedure 47B, I gasped. But that's for contact with potentially hostile shape-shifting species. Humans aren't. They voluntarily alter their bodies using mechanical devices and ceremonial gatherings, Spiral Wind countered. How is that not hostile? Because it's art, I shouted, losing my diplomatic composure entirely. Just because we don't understand their aesthetic choices doesn't make them a threat. Has anyone actually looked at the designs they're creating? Some of them are quite beautiful. Even if an alarming number do seem to involve something called tribal patterns that have nothing to do with actual tribes. Ambassador Aurora's voice turned icy. Are you defending this practice? I noticed Bell and Quantum subtly backing away from me. That is. What I mean to say is I straightened my posture. Yes, actually, I am. These modifications, while admittedly alarming from our perspective, represent a unique form of cultural expression that poses no threat to galactic security. No threat, Dawn Song scoffed. What happens when they discover other species can be similarly modified? What if they start offering their services to our citizens? The council chamber went deadly quiet as the implications sank in. Actually, Quantum mumbled. According to our research, they already have several non-human designs in their artistic repertoire. Dragons, unicorns, aliens. They already practicing on alien designs, the entire council shouted in unison. I buried my face in my appendages. Quantum, please stop helping. Aurora's hologram loomed over us. This meeting is adjourned. Ambassador Brightscale, you will receive new containment protocols within the hour. Until then, maintain absolute minimum contact with human subjects, and under no circumstances are you to attend any of these modification gatherings. But the convention is tomorrow, I protested. We have drones ready for remote observation. Think of the research potential. That's an order, Ambassador Aurora said firmly. We can't risk further contamination of our cultural perspectives. First they normalize voluntary mutation, next thing you know, everyone's walking around with decorative pigmentation patterns. Would that be so terrible? I asked quietly. The look Aurora gave me could have frozen a sun. Ambassador Brightscale Dawn Song said slowly, are you experiencing thoughts about acquiring these modifications yourself? What? No, I was just Quarantine protocols initiated, Aurora announced. Your entire team will undergo psychological evaluation upon return to homeworld. Clearly, prolonged exposure to human aesthetic practices has affected your judgment. As the council holograms winked out one by one, I slumped in my chair. Well, Belle offered after a long silence, that could have gone worse. How exactly could it have gone worse, I demanded. They could have seen the video feed from the tattoo parlor incident, Quantum suggested. I glared at him. What happened to that footage anyway? Classified, Belle said quickly. Very classified. Never to be spoken of again, classified. Right, I stared at the now empty communication chamber. So to summarize, the council thinks humans are potential shapeshifters with mutation technology. We're all being quarantined for psychological evaluation, and we're specifically forbidden from attending tomorrow's convention. That about covers it, Quantum agreed. I straightened my uniform. Belle, are the observation drones ready? Ambassador, she gasped. You heard the council's orders. I heard them overreact to incomplete data, I corrected. As lead researcher, it's my duty to gather comprehensive information before implementing any containment protocols. But quarantine, Quantum started.
Begins after we return to homeworld, I finished. Until then, we have a mission to complete. Besides, I added with a slight glow of my spots. Don't you want to see what happens at a gathering of hundreds of walking artworks? Belle and Quantum exchanged glances. The drones are ready, Belle admitted.
And I did prepare extra scanning equipment, Quantum added. Excellent, I activated our mission planning console. Let's show the council that humans aren't the only ones who can be a little rebellious in the name of art. Report date Earth Standard Time, summer 2157. Cultural Research Mission Final Log Entry. Lead Researcher Ambassador Xylof Bright Scale. Location Galactic Council Chamber, 6 months later. And in conclusion, I addressed the assembled council, my spots glowing with confidence. Humans do not possess mutation technology. They are artists, storytellers who use their bodies as canvas. The chamber had changed significantly since our last disastrous report. For one thing, High Commander Aurora Nebula was sporting a small, iridescent marking on her crystalline surface, something she insisted was purely for ceremonial purposes. But the Needle's cultural minister Dawn Song began. Are simply tools, I finished. No different from the pigments you use to enhance your aura patterns, minister. Though I must say, that new spiral design in your energy field looks remarkably similar to what humans call a Celtic knot. Dawn Song's aura flickered with embarrassment. I was merely experimenting with traditional human artistic motifs, for research purposes. Of course, I agreed, trying not to smile at the dozen other council members who had similarly experimented with various forms of decorative modification over the past 6 months. Amazing how quickly fashion trends could spread across the galaxy. Quantum Parker stepped forward, displaying our complete research findings. As you can see from our convention observations, humans use these markings to tell their personal stories. Each image holds meaning. They're not trying to hide their identity, they're expressing it.
Though some of them really should consult a language expert before getting text in our writing system, Stargazer Bell added, projecting an image of a human with decidedly incorrect Centaurian script across their shoulders.
First Minister Spiral Wind uncurled their tentacles, revealing subtle patterns that definitely hadn't been there during our initial report. And you're certain they have no plans to establish intergalactic modification centers? Well, I glanced at my team. There have been some inquiries since our culture became more widely known on Earth. Apparently, humans are quite excited about the possibility of creating art that actually glows. Absolutely not, Aurora declared, while simultaneously adjusting her crystalline surface to better display her own marking. That would be a complete violation of cultural exchange protocols, I suggested innocently, like the ones that didn't stop you from hiring that human artist during your last secret Earth visit. The chamber erupted in gasps. How did you, Aurora began? We're cultural researchers, I reminded her. We observe things, like how your new marking bears the distinctive style of Maya Winters from Electric Dreams Tattoo Studio. You promised complete discretion, Aurora hissed at someone in the back of the chamber. Maya stepped out of the shadows, grinning. Sorry, Commander. Artist-client confidentiality only goes so far when dealing with interplanetary incidents. The council members whispered among themselves, many trying to discreetly hide their own experimental modifications. Perhaps I suggested, it's time we officially revised our stance on human aesthetic practices. Dawn Song's aura pulsed with resignation. What do you propose, Ambassador? Full cultural exchange, I said firmly. Supervised, of course. But imagine the possibilities. Humans have already demonstrated remarkable creativity in adapting their art to different species. Bell, show them the proposed designs. Bell projected a series of images showing modified human tattoo techniques adapted for various alien physiologies. Glowing pigments for crystalline life forms, energy pattern enhancers for oral beings, temporary surface treatments for metamorphic species. And you believe this would benefit both cultures? Aurora asked, trying to maintain her authoritative tone despite clearly admiring the designs. Aye, Commander. I said, in the 6 months since our initial contact, legal modification tourism to Earth has increased by 300%. Half this chamber has already experimented with human art forms. Even our own security forces have started incorporating decorative elements into their camouflage patterns. That's for tactical purposes only, protested the security chief, whose scales now rippled with surprisingly artistic geometric patterns. The fact is, I continued, humans aren't going to stop creating art, and our people aren't going to stop being fascinated by it. We can either establish proper protocols for cultural exchange, or we can continue pretending those definitely non-regulation modifications you're all sporting came from somewhere else. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Aurora spoke. Minister Song, your thoughts? Dawn Song's aura swirled with complex patterns that definitely weren't standard issue. Perhaps there is room in our cultural framework for some artistic innovation. Excellent, I activated my presentation screen. I've already drafted preliminary guidelines for safe and ethical cross-species modification practices. Maya has been extremely helpful in adapting human techniques to various physiologies. You seem very prepared for this outcome, Ambassador Aurora noted suspiciously.
Just thorough cultural research, Commander. Though I adjusted my uniform slightly, revealing a small experimental glow pattern near my spots. Some of us believed in thorough hands-on research methods.
Ambassador Bright-Scale Dawn Song exclaimed. You didn't. It's non-permanent, I assured them quickly. A new technique Maya developed specifically for bioluminescent species. Completely safe, professionally applied, and I must say, quite aesthetically pleasing. It does complement your natural patterns, Bell admitted. See? This is exactly why we need official protocols, I pressed. Because right now there's a black market for glow-in-the-dark tattoos in the Andromeda sector, and I really don't trust unlicensed artists with experimental pigments. The council members exchanged glances, many unconsciously touching their own modifications. Very well, Aurora sighed. Proposal accepted, but, she added sharply, all cultural exchange must be carefully monitored. No unauthorized modifications, no experimental techniques without proper review, and absolutely no mass production of those glowing pigments until we understand the full implications. Of course, Commander, I agreed solemnly, trying not to notice how her own markings seemed to shimmer with barely suppressed interest in the new techniques. Oh, and Ambassador, she added as the council prepared to vote on the official protocols. Yes, Commander. That butterfly design you were originally interested in? Much better suited for crystalline surfaces than bioluminescent skin. Just something to consider. For research purposes. I smiled, my spots a new artistic enhancement glowing in harmony. I'll make a note in the cultural exchange database. As we left the chamber, Maya fell into step beside me. So, about that tattoo convention next month on Alpha Centauri. One step at a time, I advised. Though, perhaps pack extra needles. Something tells me we're about to see an artistic revolution spread across the galaxy. Speaking of spreading, Quantum interjected, Should we tell them about human piercing practices now, or wait until they've fully adjusted to tattoos? Belle, Maya, and I spoke in perfect unison, one cultural exchange at a time. Behind us, I could hear council members already making discreet appointments at Maya's newly established intergalactic electric dream studio. Sometimes, I reflected, the best way to understand a culture was to let it transform your own, one artistic modification at a time. And if anyone asked about that classified footage from the tattoo parlor incident, well, some stories were better left untold, at least until the next council meeting, when I planned to unveil our research on human music festivals. But that was another potential cultural crisis for another day.